I think that there are a lot of misconceptions online about noise and ISO, and I think a lot of people, not even just beginners, but all sorts of photographers and videographers are being really held back by being terrified of cranking their ISO up when they need to. Let me explain. When I was first learning digital photography after years of just shooting film, I went out for a long day of street photography, and as it got darker and darker and my ISO kept going up and up, I kept getting more and more stressed out about it. Eventually, when it hit about 3200, I went home for the day. I thought, that's it, I've run out of light. Oh well. Fast forward to now, when I've had a lot more experience with digital, I almost forget that ISO used to be a constraint. I regularly crank that dial right up to 12,800 and beyond. It's not just a flex, it's massively creatively freeing. It can let you achieve so much more with your camera and your vision. But if you're shooting at ISOs that high, surely your images must be deep fried in grain and noise, right? Well, not quite. Let me explain and show you what I mean. ISOphobia is the fear of having low image quality due to high ISO usage. It's known to affect photographers of all skill levels. ISOphobia is easily treatable, but if ignored, could develop into 3D pop psychosis, orange and teal disorder, or Leicaism. No, but seriously, so many photographers, even working professionals, are extremely worried about the noise that using a high ISO can create. The funny thing is, they're wrong. And so was I. I'm just gonna butt in here for a second. You should probably subscribe to this channel if you're into this sort of thing. If you grab your camera and pop outside after lunch to do some tests, you'll learn two really key things. Number one being the actual difference in your image quality between like ISO 100 and ISO 800 is zero. Even up to like ISO 1600, there's barely a difference unless you're really looking for it. And it's not like anybody else is going to look at your photos like they're searching for Waldo. I dare you to stick those photos on your phone and spot the difference. The other thing you'll learn is that even cranked up to something like 12,800, there's not that much noise. Sure, there's some, but it's not a complete write-off. It's not like there's a chunk of uranium in front of the camera. Okay, you're saying that's fine, but 12,800 does look worse than 100 or 400, so lower is better, right? Yeah. Wait, no, sorry, my bad. No, I'll explain, but first, let me show you what I mean. I'll show you some footage from the Sony FX30, which is a crop sensor camera with a base ISO of 800 and 2500. See if you can guess what ISO I used for these shots while I fill you in on today's video sponsor, Zhiyun. It really feels like the team at Zhiyun really think outside the box about how to make the best possible gear for creators. This is the Molis G300 light, and yeah, it's 300 watts. To have that much light in a lunchbox-sized fixture is not only awesome for traveling, it's perfect for solo creators who don't have a whole van full of grip equipment. Look, I will be honest, I don't like using gimbals. They're heavy, I hate balancing them, I could go on, but I won't because the Zhiyun Crane 4 kind of fixed it for me. It's got lights that tell you when it's balanced and a light for the camera, and it's got a wrist rest and an extra handle, so it's way nicer to carry all day and use for those longer shots. Basically, the stuff that Zhiyun makes is genuinely stuff I use every day. That's not just ad speak, that's true, and I'm super grateful to have a relationship with them. If you need lights or a gimbal, I can't recommend them enough. There are links below. All of that footage, apart from my talking head, was shot at ISO 12,800, by the way. Photography is all about trade-offs. It's a big balancing act. We can control our shutter speed, our aperture, and our ISO. We can't control how much light there is outside, and so unless there's loads of it, something has to give. If your shutter is too slow, you get motion blur. If your lens is wide open at f1.2 or 1.4, have fun with the 2 inches of stuff in focus you get. The ISO is nice and high, you get some noise. But if you stop and think about that for a second, which of those 3 has the smallest impact on the end result? Like, out of those 3 options for dealing with insufficient light, which one compromises our vision for the photo we wanted the least? ISO, right? I mean, I'd much rather have a photo that's a little noisier than usual than a photo where you can't even see the subject's face because they're blurry. When I'm shooting street photography, it's really important to me that I have a fast enough shutter speed to freeze motion and as much depth of field, that's stuff that's in focus, as I can get, and so I let the ISO go as high as it needs to go to get enough exposure. And worst case scenario, even high ISO shots that are kind of underexposed are so easy to fix in post, it almost feels like cheating. Is it cheating? And remember, most of the time you're not going to need ISO 12800. Most of the time when I shoot night street photography outside in the dark, I stick to around ISO 3200. Your camera's light meter might disagree with me, but that's because it's wrong. No, really, it is wrong. Your camera doesn't know it's meant to be dark, so it's trying to make the nighttime look as bright as daytime. So generally speaking, when I shoot at night, auto ISO comes off, manual it is. Remember how at the start of the video I talked about how I used to only shoot film? Well, I used to shoot a lot of Tri-X and HP5 pushed to 3200 because I really liked the gritty, grainy, contrasty look it gave me. So why do we avoid digital noise like it's going to instantly end our careers? I admit it's not as pleasing as film grain, but I also think that photos with no texture to them at all kind of look a bit wrong, and I often add grain to my photos. Especially for dark, moody shots, having noise feels like it fits aesthetically. ISO isn't a technical constraint, it's a creative tool, and we should start using it like one. And most importantly of all, even if you have a tiny sensor from 20 years ago and ISO 1600 looks grainy enough to kill somebody with a gluten allergy, it won't matter if your photo is telling a great story. Making stuff technically perfect doesn't matter, and people have been making great art on cameras far worse than yours for many years. So relax about ISO. You don't worry about the grain or the noise. Focus on the story, and you'll be surprised at how much you can learn. One thing that's way easier when you're not worrying about your ISO is zone focusing, since you can stop down more. If you'd like to learn how you can literally be faster than autofocus, you can watch this video where I explain it in a really simple and easy way. Stay hydrated and create art.